Quite an impressive story, absolutely. Thank you. And then there's me. Can everyone hear me okay? I kind of feel awkward in front of this microphone. It's actually my Facebook picture. But anyways, when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a lacrosse player. I played 3 sports. I was varsity in 3 sports as a freshman. But my passion was lacrosse. I had the best universities in the country looking at me, Duke, Syracuse, in lacrosse, best programs in lacrosse. I ended up messing that one up. I also used to kind of like to fight a little bit. And yeah, so that didn't go over very well. I also didn't really pay attention in school, so my grades didn't help either. The point is, after failing out of Southern Connecticut State University in 2003, I enlisted into the Army. I ended up in one of the, I'd say, most prestigious divisions in the Army, the 101st Airborne. Immediately was sent to Iraq because that's what was happening at that point, and Afghanistan, but I was in Iraq. I was in the infantry. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It's very interesting, to say the least. A lot of combat, but I ended up getting wounded in combat. I received a Purple Heart. That was scariest day of my life. Was almost killed. Well, I was real close that time. It happened to me probably hundreds of times, but that was real close. Came home, went back to Iraq in charge of soldiers. At this point, I was an NCO, I was a sergeant. And then I transitioned out of the military. I'll happily answer any questions about the military afterwards. And I started working as a bartender, and I was experiencing terrible leadership, in my opinion. So I enrolled in Gateway Community College here for many reasons, but I met awesome professors here. Several of them are in back. I sat in Rose's class, Dan's class. They taught me a lot about entrepreneurship and business. And honestly, as I was doing that, I was also building my clientele as a personal trainer. I know I said I was a bartender, but I was personal training, I was bartending, and I was doing school. Long story short, I ended up going into business for myself about 5-6 years ago, depending on if you're checking with the IRS or not. And I built my business, CW Fit LLC. I went from losing money to making money, but the point is, it's a very gray area what I do. I do nutrition, primarily for athletes. Actually, what you were talking about, Mike, when it comes to recording calories and calorie expenditure and things of that nature that apps do, I actually do. Apps could literally put me out of business, but I get that personal touch. But anyways, I work with athletes, and I enjoy it. But I also do mostly mentoring at this point of younger athletes, and I work with very elite athletes. People have been drafted into the NFL that I've worked with, professional mixed martial artists, bodybuilders, CrossFit's big these days. But it's management, honestly. And I'll answer any questions about that. It was my passion, and I rolled with it. And I think the biggest thing that you can have as an entrepreneur is passion. And never chase money. Don't chase money, because you'll think that money is the answer to everything, and it's not. Happiness is, in my opinion. But currently, I run CW Fit LLC, and I also am finishing grad school in the fall. It's definitely a heavy workload. I do regularly 90, 100-hour weeks between work and school, but I enjoy what I do, so it really doesn't feel like work. Again, I'm sure we'll all answer questions at the end. I don't want to skip over anything or concentrate on one or the other, but I love what I do, and it makes me happy, and that's what I feel is most important as an entrepreneur. Stan, do you want me to just ask the panel? Yeah. Okay. Would anyone like to answer the first question? What started you on your path as a business owner? Yeah, all right. Mike, go ahead.
So, I already explained a little bit how I started a beverage company.
Chad? Nice.
started a beverage company in college. It's something I fell into. We didn't even mean to start the company. It was my roommate and I. We were basically cooking up some mixtures in the kitchen, and my apartment in the North End, which is the Italian section, it's an older area. Your neighbors are literally this far apart. Your view is into like your neighbor's kitchen. So I had this old Italian woman looking in, and my apartment looked like a drug factory. There's white powder everywhere. They called the cops on us, actually, and I'm like, it's just vitamin C, it's B12, we're sorry. But we started selling this stuff, and well, actually, let me take a step back. We were giving it out to friends, and then word started traveling. People were asking to buy it, and then we got a call from an investor in Wisconsin, and that's where I got the call for the business plan. He had a check for 6 figures he wanted to write, and I said, oh my God. You know, I was living off like a couple $100 a month at that point. I was a college student. So it was really an unbelievable experience, but worked on that business plan, got it started, did production and manufacturing and design, and going to the flavor house, and going to Pennsylvania to get this stuff on the line and actually make it, which is an incredible feeling to see kind of something that was on paper, running down a production line and actually tasting it and making thousands and thousands of units of it. And that's really how I got started. And then I said, you know what, the beverage company's not for me. We took money from the wrong people, which is something that I could spend a couple of days talking about. Is, you know, there's a lot of money out there, but go for the strategic capital, especially when you're getting started. You want, you know, people that can help you grow. Or Cuban. But yeah, so you want the strategic capital that can help you use it as like the soapbox to launch, make the connections you need, because, you know, we gave a significant amount of equity away for just money, and it wasn't enough. And I parted ways with it and got started on a new business now that I'm super passionate about. Michelle and I are actually in another business, which I mentioned, and we are in the fundraising process for that, which is a process.
It's always the hardest, right?
Oh yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the best way to, you know, I think there's a finance question here, but I'll spill the beans now. The best way to get money is to make money. You know, start having the conversations with the angel investors before you actually need their money. And if you have some money coming in, it's a whole lot easier to pique their interest. So a little bit of a tangent there, but yeah, that's how I got started.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent explanation. Anybody else like to field this question?
Sure. I kind of already talked about how I got the idea for my business. But before that, I studied biochemistry when I was in undergrad at school. Plan was to go to med school and do all that fun stuff. But when I got out of college, I had a friend's mother who ran a nonprofit who worked with young entrepreneurs. And at that point, that was probably 5 years ago, I didn't know what the word entrepreneur meant. The idea of business to me, I had a very naive and ignorant view of it. I thought it was an evil thing. We only did it to make money, and that was not good. But I got introduced to the idea of social entrepreneurship. The idea that you can take a product or an idea or a service and use it to create good in the world, and to also use it to build a business, to build a company you know, that employs people, that makes money while doing some really cool stuff. Blew my mind. So that's what kind of got me started in the world of entrepreneurship, and kind of took me down this path away from, you know, med school and all of that stuff. So I guess my lesson from that was never, you know, always be willing to explore new paths. You never know where it's going to take you. You know, I decided to jump into this internship opportunity because it was there, it was something different, and my curiosity took me there. So always be willing to say yes to these new opportunities and discover things about yourself that you never knew.
Awesome. Good advice. Absolutely.
Okay, so what I like to state is we're starting on a pathway to, you know, having my own business, I sort of had an inner light from high school. And what, what encouraged that light was the class that I've taken in high school, which is entrepreneurship class. And it basically, that's how I got familiar with the show Shark Tank. I also got familiar with the business plan, and that basically, initiated the whole thought process. And then after I graduated high school, as I explained before, I was a caregiver, but now I'm a personal banker. And the transition between that, during that time and now, was the fact that I wanted to plug into business in between, school and in between gaining this experience. And by plugging into those two avenues, now I'm here today, and I won't say I have the experience in the field that I'm pursuing, because you only get hindsight after you've experienced it. However, I'm a bit more comfortable. I've built networks with people that I can rely on as resources when I do have issues. Even today, I'm building a network with you guys, so I'm obtaining the skills. But, so those things basically initiated the process to me being here today and me becoming an entrepreneur myself, by just basically gaining, speaking to that inner light. We all have an inner light inside of us. We may not know how to allocate our inner light, however, we can still embrace it, whatever path it takes you down. Obviously, all of us today, if I can speak and say that, we do have an inner light, and what we've done, and what you guys are doing, even by sitting here today, is that you guys are basically embracing that inner light, because that's what entrepreneurship is. Believing in yourself, whatever you feel, with your gut feeling, it's not about making the money. It's about going what makes you happy. So, at the end of the day, to answer this question is, I guess it was like the inner light that basically had me pursue on this path to entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
I think there's two things I'd like to say about this question. I think one is whenever you start a business as an entrepreneur, oftentimes, like I heard Mike say, I fell into it, and I think it was the same thing for me and probably all of us on the panel, is you don't really plan to be starting your particular business. Like I said, for me, it was more just out of rejection, getting my book proposal rejected a bunch of times, I had to do something else. So you don't really often have like a specific plan. You often fall into it. But I will say that oftentimes there's some traits of being an entrepreneur that you might be able to recognize early on. Like I didn't know I'd ever be an entrepreneur, but in elementary school, while my friends were trading Pokemon cards, I was starting to trade them and sell them, right? And then in middle school, I was selling music CDs. In high school, I was selling used iPhones. In college, I had an eBay business, right? So it was like all these things that I really enjoyed, starting my own things and hustling, making money, obviously, as an entrepreneur. But I never thought I'll be an entrepreneur someday. It was just these things, even as an elementary school. So if you've ever done those types of things at a younger age, you might have some traits of an entrepreneur. One of the biggest traits of an entrepreneur is probably just working way more than anyone else, and not being satisfied with a 40-hour work week or whatever it may be. But yeah.
Absolutely agreed. So I'll keep it short and sweet when it comes to this question. The whole panel definitely answered the question well. And you'll probably hear me say this with every question, but it's passion. Yes?
Speaking of keeping it short and sweet, I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay.
One of the things that we talked about today was this concept of the inner light and having a dream. And and fortunately, we're all here together today, sharing in the dream of someone that I'm going to introduce to you, an individual who had a vision for what this place could be and what it is today. It is with great pleasure that I'd like to introduce the president of Gateway Community College, Dr. Doris Kendrick.